The second week of hurricane season, more quiet than the first. A live look here at Satellite as we continue to break down what to expect in the weeks and months ahead in the 2020 hurricane season here live on Tracking the Tropics. Hey there, everybody. JB Buno here with our full team of meteorologists joining us from across the country here at WFLA. We have Julie Phillips and Amanda Holly. And joining us from KAMR in Amarillo, Texas, Chief Meteorologist John Harris from our sister station. We'll be hearing from him momentarily. But we start with meteorologist Amanda Holly with the very latest on the current conditions. No more Cristobal, or Cristobal not necessarily as much of a factor as what we were talking about this time a week ago, Amanda.
Yeah, that's right. You know, it kind of merged with another system, and we're still talking about the remnants. There's still a lot of tropical moisture up near the Midwest, and it will likely bring another round of severe weather to portions of the Midwest today. But in terms of the tropics, if we can pull up weather for JB, we can go over kind of what we're looking at this point. And typically, this is where we look during the month of June for that development. Obviously, this is exactly the position where Cristobal developed there near the Yucatan and kind of made its way across the Gulf of Mexico. We're going to get into why exactly we look at this particular area here in just a moment. But in terms of what's going on in the tropics right now, it's quiet. Like JB said, a little bit quieter to start the second week of hurricane season. You can see on infrared satellite in the development zone that we like to look at during this time of year, there's not a whole lot going on. Even if we look farther out in the Atlantic, there's still pretty quiet conditions. One thing that might catch your eye is a swirl there at the top of the screen. That is an area of low pressure that the National Hurricane Center has kind of been watching for the potential of developing, but their latest update just came in, and now it is at a near 0% chance for development. So that's great news. Wouldn't have ever affected us anyway, but certainly something that we've been keeping an eye on, JB. And of course, we can't forget about Cristobal because of those impacts that we are seeing still from the remnants of Cristobal, Julie and John. You know, this area of low pressure brought rounds of severe weather yesterday to portions of the Chicago area, and now we're going to see another round of potential severe thunderstorms in the upper Midwest. The Storm Prediction Center has a moderate risk of some of that severe weather today.
Absolutely. I was looking at that. The Storm Prediction Center has places in the Midwest, particularly Detroit, is under that moderate risk of seeing severe weather, which is definitely something they are not used to seeing, especially when it comes with also a post-tropical system as well. I think it's been since 2013 that a moderate risk has been issued for that area. So it's not that usual to see such a high risk of seeing some of those very damaging straight line winds, and also the risk of tornadoes. Was looking back, they said the setup with this system is kind of similar. If you are in that area, from 1997, there was a tornado outbreak, a lot of strong and severe winds, because we have the remnants of this system and then this cold front that has merged with it, and that is contributing again to just a high risk and a high threat of more severe weather. This started off this weekend in the Gulf Coast, where we had flash flooding. There was an EF1 tornado in Orlando that did cause some damage, and storm surges that were up to 6.2 feet in Shell Beach in Louisiana. And now we're still seeing impacts from this system days later up in the Great Lakes. So pretty unusual in that regard.
Definitely a long start to the first week of hurricane season, JB, and we're only just getting started. 6 months left.
6 months to go, everybody.
Yes.
We are going to be here with you every step of the way on Tracking the Tropics. We'll be hearing from Chief Meteorologist John Harris in a moment. But first, we want to remind you that we are going to be taking some questions coming up in about 5 minutes' time. You see the hashtags under each one of our names. The hashtag Hey Amanda, hashtag Hey Julie, hashtag Hey JB, and hashtag Hey John. You ever wondered about what we go through here as far as hurricanes, tropical storms, how our meteorologists prepare you and track these systems in the Atlantic and beyond? We're going to be taking some questions here in the Facebook Live comment section. Use the hashtags on your screen. Again, 5 minutes time. We'll start to look for some of those questions as they come in. But I want to bring in Chief Meteorologist John Harris here as well to join this conversation. Amanda, we were talking about this earlier about sea surface temperatures, water temperatures, and their impact on tropical development.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about that, John. And again, this is something that we were talking about before the stream and how it's going to impact you in the coming months with the possibility of La Niña developing. But right now, in terms of the sea surface temperatures, the reason that we look at the Gulf, John, is that it's so warm.
Absolutely. We only have to go back to 2017 when Hurricane Harvey came ashore in the Gulf Coast area just downstream from Corpus Christi in the upper coastal Bend area of Texas, and it came across waters that were almost 100 degrees in the Gulf of Mexico. It started out as a very benign system making its way along the coast, the east coast of Mexico, and then all of a sudden went over the top of these very hot waters, if you want to call it that, in the Gulf, and then exploded into I believe it was a Category 4 hurricane as it came ashore just to the east of Corpus Christi, and then of course it went inland, and then it rained itself out over Houston and back over toward Galveston and across southeast Texas, and set all types of records for the amount of rainfall ever seen, not only in Texas but across the United States. In fact, the National Weather Service had to change their basically their entire scale for how much rain could fall from a tropical system. So indeed, the Gulf is basically the place where these early hurricanes and tropical systems really get started, and then of course coming ashore somewhere along the Gulf Coast from Brownsville all the way to Tampa to Miami.
Yeah, something we watch very closely, and you can see the sea surface temperatures there on the center of your screen, and they are plenty warm enough for
I was going to say there's a lot of red on this, and I see in the top right it says warm enough, and then I see just a swath of red across our screen. That to me is just a little bit worrisome, but is that out of the ordinary for this time of year, Julie?
Not really. I would not say out of the ordinary. In fact, it's only going to get warmer. That's why June is when things slowly start heating up. We don't really reach the peak until mid-August. But as you know, even in May, sometimes we do see tropical systems that can develop in the Gulf because the waters are warm enough. Maybe not warm enough to fuel a Category 3 or 4 hurricane, but warm enough to fuel a tropical storm. And as those waters get warmer and warmer, usually by July, August here, we've got Gulf temps just off our coast at 91 degrees sometimes, so very warm waters. So it's only going to get warmer from here on out, and that's why things really start to heat up later on into the season.
Amanda, John?
Absolutely, I agree. I'm trying to get my graphics to advance here. There we go. So you can see in the Atlantic how, you know, we don't have warm enough waters just yet. So that's kind of why we look a little closer to home. But interestingly enough, still talking about Cristobal here and the impacts that Cristobal had, it churned up the Gulf. So we started off the season with warmer than average sea surface temperatures in the Gulf, but now they're actually below average. Still warm enough for development, but kind of interesting to see that churning of the water there and how it can kind of really mix up those temperatures.
Absolutely, and right now, of course, it is quiet in the Atlantic Basin, but like we were saying a while ago, as we go into more of a La Nina, and of course that wind shear is gone over the Atlantic Basin, and also in the eastern part of the Pacific Ocean, the chances are pretty good, it sounds like, that we will see quite a few tropical storms becoming named hurricanes and possibly reaching land not only in the Gulf, but also in the Baja of California and into the eastern Pacific. So it looks like a very active year, of course, headed our way.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit more, John. On your screen right now for everyone watching, you can see the blue strip there of those cooler than normal waters off the coast of South Africa, just south of Mexico. This could potentially lead to the La Nina. You briefly touched that, John, but talk about the impacts of a La Nina. We have kind of talked about the impacts of a La Nina in the tropical, areas for the Atlantic and how a La Nina could lead to, a more active season. But your area specifically, you were talking about how it could lead to a drought.
It really can. For us, it's kind of a distance as far as getting good rainfall across the southwest part of the United States. A La Nina basically means a ridge of high pressure over the top of Texas, Arizona, California, Utah, Colorado, and it basically means that our rainfall amounts will be minimal, and it hurts us as we go into the following winter. So, for example, as we make our way into 2021, we get into an extremely bad wildfire season out here on the high plains and across the this part of the United States, the mountains of New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, Arizona, because there's no moisture, there's no rain, because we basically have this stagnant ridge of high pressure over the top of us, brought to you by La Nina. Now, in 2011, that's when we had a very strong La Nina over Texas, and we all went into drought. From Houston to Dallas to San Antonio, Amarillo, El Paso, had many wildfires across the state of Texas during that year. And then around the outer circumference of that high, well, we had the devastating tornado that hit Joplin, Missouri. the F5 tornado that went through Tuscaloosa, Alabama, again in the April timeframe of 2011. So La Niñas for the southwest part of the United States, that really means drought for most of us.
Everybody, we're going to be now opening up the Facebook Live Q&A portion of our segment. For those of you who have joined us here on Tracking the Tropics before, you might have seen this. This is our meteorologist Q&A portion. We're going to be taking questions out of the Facebook Live comment section here and asking them to our team of meteorologists. You ever sitting out at lunch or dinner and talking about weather and asking questions and be like, oh, that would be a great question for a meteorologist? Well, we have 3 of them here on your screen with many, many years of experience, including Chief Meteorologist John Harris down there in Amarillo with 28 years of experience being a meteorologist in Amarillo, Texas. Julie Phillips, Amanda Holly here, who have been with us for countless episodes of Track of the Tropics. So look for the hashtags on your screen, hashtag HeyJB, hashtag HeyJohn, hashtag HeyAmanda, and hashtag HeyJulie. We'll be taking a few questions here out of the Facebook Live comment section. And the first question that we have here comes from Amber in the comment section, hashtag HeyJohn. Do you think with how high the water temperature is in the Gulf, will a hurricane come by next week? That's the question here from Amber,
goodness.
John. What do you think?
Well, you know, that'd be a great forecast. I hope I get that forecast right. But you know, we are now into hurricane season starting June 1. And so it doesn't take long this time of year to get a hurricane started. And for sure, if we have a La Nina coming into play, because the waters around the equator and just north of the equator are very still, that also includes the Gulf. And so it makes it easier for a hurricane to form and then to continue its trek inland somewhere across the United States, you know, basically from the Gulf east. But you never say never. And with the fact that the waters are so warm, the waters will have had a chance to become warmer again after Cristobal is long gone. And the patterns upstairs are very summer-like, so we don't have cold fronts coming through. We don't have this wind shear to tear apart thunderstorms or the circulation pattern of a hurricane. So, that's something we definitely need to keep an eye on.
Taking your questions out of the Facebook Live comment section. No hurricanes that we're going to be seeing anytime soon if you missed the beginning of our program here with Amanda's current look at satellite and what we're currently seeing here in addition to our friends from the National Hurricane Center, of course. Let's get to our next featured comment here, everybody. This one comes from Ricky Tedder in the comment section from our sister station WKRG, hashtag Hey Amanda. Do you think that this year is going to be the worst than before, Amanda?
Worse is a relative term, because if you didn't get impacted by a hurricane last year, you know, it might not have been a bad season for you. Obviously, it was a very bad season for the Bahamas. But in terms of the numbers, last year was an above average season. Do I think that going into this year will be above average as well? I do. We just have those atmospheric conditions that are going to be ripe for development pretty much for the next 6 months. We alluded to that with the possible development of La Nina and the calmer winds over the Atlantic. That just leads to more favorable conditions out there for those tropical storms to form and continue to maintain their strength, if not get even stronger. And we're just going to have to see where those particular storms that develop and where they go. That's going to be the key.
And we're again taking questions out of the Facebook Live comment section using the hashtags that you see here on your screen. If you have a question that you would like to ask, let us know. Let's get to our next featured comment. And this one comes to me, but I'm going to pose this one to Julie here because I am not a meteorologist, but we're going to take this question here from Tito Rivera, hashtag HeyJB. What are the chances that Tampa sees serious rain or severe storm this season? Julie?
All right, well, we are heading into the rainy season here in Tampa, so we've already started to see a lot of heavy rain developing so far this month. We've already had over 4 inches of rain, and we're just about a week in. So safe to say we're probably going to have a wet June, but this is the time of year where we see those sea breeze thunderstorms, and some years can be wetter than others depending on where exactly the thunderstorms set up across the state of Florida. Just kind of depends on the sea breeze collisions each day. So I think most likely from here on out, we're going to continue to have that threat most afternoons of seeing some areas that will pick up on some heavy rain. And in terms of a hurricane, like I said, Amanda said, it looks very likely that we'll have an active season. That does not forecast landfalls, though, or where those landfalls occur. So we'll have to see. Hopefully, maybe we have an active season and they all stay out to sea. That would be the hope. but we'll just have to wait around. Of course, the more storms there are, the odds are more likely that areas in the U.S. will be affected by those storms.
Hopefully for us here in Tampa, we do not see a serious storm anytime soon. For all of us, wherever you're watching from, we want a quiet hurricane season. Of course, we're live here in Tracking the Tropics to educate you, inform you, keep you alert, keep you and your family safe over the course of the 2020 hurricane season. We'll get to one or two more comments, everybody. Our next featured comment comes from Stormy Lee Fisher. Hashtag, hey John, my family just moved to Houston, Texas from Tampa, Florida. What should we expect for a hurricane season or for hurricane season this year? And Stormy says, thank you.
Stormy, I love that name. That is very cool. Well, again, Houston can be fair game for hurricanes, just like anywhere along the coast of the Gulf of Mexico. So something we'll definitely keep an eye on, and the same conditions will be in the Gulf of Mexico that we expect a little bit farther to the east in the Atlantic Ocean and in the Caribbean as we go through the summer months. Again, we have this what's known as a La Niña in place, which basically means no wind shear aloft in the atmosphere. So it allows for these hurricanes, these tropical entities to form. And again, only time would tell whether or not one would make it toward Houston or toward New Orleans or even come ashore somewhere along the Gulf Coast. Like Julie was saying a while ago, nobody knows. We hope they all stay out to sea, but this year, because the conditions are more favorable for the development of a hurricane or a tropical entity, that's something we definitely need to keep an eye on. Houston does see hurricanes from time to time. I believe 2008 we had Hurricane Ike that came into Galveston Bay and up close to Houston as it made its way into East Texas. We had Rita that came in back in 2005, the same year that we had Katrina come in into the New Orleans area. So you never say never. You just want to be prepared for whatever happens and be ready to evacuate when those orders are given. And, everything more than likely will be fine. But again, something we definitely want to keep an eye on.
We'll take one more question here in the Facebook Live comment section. Again, being joined here by Chief Meteorologist John Harris from Amarillo, Texas, WFLA meteorologists Amanda Holly and Julie Phillips. And Amanda, I'm going to ask for your help here for pronouncing the last name of this one. Would you say George Record or Record for this commenter's last name?
I'm going to go with Record.
Record? Okay, so we're going to say George Record. Hashtag, hey, Amanda, any possibility of developments in the Gulf or near Florida? Of course, we have a lot of Florida viewers here on Tracking the Tropics, and maybe we could we can broaden this question out a little bit, Amanda, because Florida sticks out like a sore thumb as far as tropical activity is concerned. What are we keeping a very, very close eye on as far as the next several months? How far out are we looking into the Atlantic when we start to track some of these systems as they come off the coast of Africa?
So right now, that's why we kind of look closer to home. We have those environmental conditions favorable closer to home here in the Gulf and just off the coast of the mid-Atlantic states. We have the warmer than normal sea surface temperatures there. They're plenty warm enough for development. As we go closer to August, late July, August, and September, that's when we start to look in that main development region closer to Africa. We start to watch those tropical waves roll off the coast of Africa, and we kind of track them all the way, and they usually take about 2 weeks to make their way across. But in terms of the question, no developments are expected right now near the Gulf of Mexico, Tampa, or Florida at this point. And even some of our longer range models are pretty quiet at this point.
Yeah, and John, not all of them obviously coming from across the Atlantic. We've had some storms, some systems that we've tracked near Mexico. Cristobal was right over Mexico, southern Mexico, for an extended period of time before making that trek up northward. It was the remnants of Amanda on the Pacific side of things.
Absolutely, and a lot of times for us up here in Amarillo, Texas, we're located in the Great Plains and the Southern High Plains. So if you were to look at the map of Texas, we're up here in what's known as the Panhandle. So we're about 6 hours away from Houston. We're about 1,000 miles away, 6 hours away from Dallas, about 1,000 miles away from Houston. And so a lot of times the systems coming into the Gulf Coast, say from Brownsville, Corpus Christi, Houston, New Orleans, will bypass this part of Texas, and we really don't see any benefit at all as far as rain up here on the high plains. In fact, quite often what will happen, and this happened with Cristobal on Monday, or Cristobal on Monday, as it came ashore, on top of the cyclone, there's a ridge of high pressure venting air away from the cyclone, and then as it expands out away from that entity, gravity pulls it back to the surface and it creates what's known as compressional warming. So up here in the Texas Panhandle, as Cristobal was coming to shore in Louisiana, making its way through Arkansas, we were tagging 100 degrees right here in the city. We had a couple of towns not far away from Amarillo that had temperatures up around 110 degrees, again, because of that additional compressional warming. So a lot of times the Atlantic-based hurricanes don't do much for us up here on the high plains, but the tropical storms and the hurricanes coming in from the Baja of California, from the Eastern Pacific, do help us out as far as rainfall in this part of the world. That moisture is pulled over the Rocky Mountains, or it's trained over the top of the Rocky Mountains, and then it becomes basically energy for us to use, our area to use, to get some really good rains up here in this part of the world. We're in a steppe climate up here. We're one step away from being a desert. There's a reason why Amarillo, I'll call Amarillo the yellow city, because we don't see much rain up here. So for us, our benefits from the tropical systems usually come in from the Pacific as opposed to the Gulf Coast, even though our state is in contact with the Gulf of Mexico.
Chief Meteorologist John Harris joining us on FaceTime from KAMR in Amarillo, Texas. I lied to you guys. We're going to take one more question because it's one that we can answer really quickly, and it kind of pertains to our featured topic today, talking about sea surface temperatures. So let's end out on this one here. It's hashtag HAB. What is the Atlantic water temperature currently? So maybe Amanda, Julie, maybe we can answer that one really briefly before we wrap up here on Tracking the Tropics.
So the Atlantic water temperatures, obviously the Atlantic is very large.
There's a lot of different temperatures out there,
yes,
right?
yeah. So the farther north you go, the much colder temperatures you get. But the Atlantic water temperatures at this point, I would say, are in the mid 70s. But the Gulf of Mexico water temperatures, they're in the low 80s right now. That's why we kind of look to the Gulf of Mexico at this point. But we will be seeing those Atlantic water temperatures warm up as we head into the summer months. They're only going up from here as the summer months are upon us.
For Floridians who love to go to the beach and experience warmer water temperatures, remember those warmer temperatures, they also cultivate tropical development. So it's we get the experience the good, the bad of some of the warmer temperatures that we have down here on the Gulf Coast side of things. Chief Meteorologist John Harris joining us from KAMR. John, before we let you go, your thoughts on, as we continue to track the tropics and keep our viewers, of course, educated and aware and informed over the course of the 2020 hurricane season, your final thoughts here as we keep a very close eye on things.
Well, again, I just go back to the fact that we're kind of in a neutral phase between La Nina and El Nino, and La Nina seems to be the favored phase coming into play during the late summer months into the fall. And so, again, that doesn't bode well as far as not seeing much in the way of the tropics. Unfortunately, it helps tropical storm development. So, again, only time will tell. And we'll have to make our way through the summer months to see how many hurricanes and tropical storms we actually see in the Atlantic Basin and the Gulf of Mexico. But right now, from where we are seeing this, I think all Mets agreed on this, that it probably will be an active season. So best of luck to you folks in Florida and to our friends down the Gulf Coast here in Texas and Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia. And again, hopefully we can get by without too much of a problem this year.
Next Star Nation streaming, of course, coast to coast, everybody, really around the world, wherever you're watching from. We have viewers joining us from Europe, from Asia, Australia, but it's great to have such a wide, broad network of meteorologists with countless years of experience tracking hurricanes, tracking tropical storms, such as Chief Meteorologist John Harris here joining us from KAMR. More featured meteorologists coming your way, everybody, in the weeks ahead. But for Julie Phillips, Amanda Holly, and John Harris joining us on FaceTime, I'm JB Buno. Thanks for watching Tracking the Tropics. We'll see you next week or sooner if there's any tropical development to talk about. But as of right now, things quiet in the tropics as we like them. Our next episode, as scheduled, Wednesday, 2 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Central. Thanks for being with us, everybody.
Thank you for watching Tracking the Tropics.